تذكر يوما كنت تعانق دمعة الفكر تناجي الله في صبر وترجو رحمة تسري فعاش القلب إخلاصا وصرت تحوم كالطير تحلق في ثقافات وتنهل من ربى الخير.
Al-Mu'minun. There is a surah called Al-Mu'minun. If we're trying to investigate who are these faithful people, there is a surah that begins by saying قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Surah number 23. And again here, what are the things, the qualities and attributes that are mentioned to explain why the believers are successful. Why are they successful? Why have they succeeded? الَّذِينَ هُمْ في صلاتهم خاشعون. They are those who are present and humble and conscious and full of awe in their prayers. So it's not only about performing the prayers in the kind of external sense, practicing Muslim, because people see you practicing, so you're practicing. It's an external description. But they are successful because, and on the condition that, في صلاتهم خاشعون. So it's that heart again, coming back to the heart. When Allah is mentioned, their hearts tremble. When they are in salah, they are full of this lowliness before Allah, this humility, this khushu', this connection. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. So in this chain of ayat, which we won't mention all of them in detail, we find a description of how they are turning away from vain speech. They're turning away from things that don't concern them. So if we're going to mention the social media storm and scandals and all of these things, I will come back to that point. That when something doesn't concern you, you busy yourself with what concerns you. Busy yourself with something that will benefit you, or through it you can benefit others. And this is one of the points I remember from the course in Oman. The Shaykh who was teaching it would always keep saying to us, Rakkiz, rakkiza, rakkiz, rakkiz. Pay attention. And especially when he was reciting the ayat, and most of the course, by the way, he was just reciting ayat of the Quran. And amazingly, it was a lot of the time like we didn't hear those ayats before. Even if we have, the way that he brought them, and in a silken thread, guiding us through these ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he would always tell us, focus. And what I realized at the end, or towards the end, was he was giving us a life lesson. Because he explained that later on. I'm telling you to focus because everything in this world around you is trying to distract you and stop you from focusing. To stop you from listening to Allah's verses. To stop you from pondering upon His book. To stop you from being full of wonder and khushu' in your salah. To stop your heart from trembling at Allah's mention. Because you are so distracted. And because your spirits have been drained. And your resources have been drained. And you have been dispersed into everything that doesn't concern you. So a practicing Muslim, if we want to know what it means, if we want to understand, by the way, practicing Muslim is not a Quranic term. Right? The closest I can say is الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. So they are Muslims in faith, but they also are practicing and doing good deeds. But we're all practicing Muslims. I don't know what it means to be a non-practicing Muslim. You're a Muslim, it means you are submitting yourself. That submission is itself a practice. Believing in Allah is a practice, it's an action of the heart. Because the heart has got actions and the limbs, the eyes, the tongue, these have all got their own actions. The actions of the heart are knowing Allah, loving Allah, fearing Allah, repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of these are actions of the heart. But that's the problem when we think about practicing Muslims or practicing Islam in almost physical terms. Physical manifestations are what defines practicing. for so many people. But we really need to remind ourselves that the heart of the matter is in here. Okay? The core of the matter is in here. So amal, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. We've talked already about amal because we couldn't escape it. As soon as we look at what is the person of iman, it was already mentioning the actions such as salah, such as spending, and numerous other things. Also, there is this balance between fulfilling the rights of Allah upon us and fulfilling the rights of the people. حقوق الله وحقوق العباد. And that brings us back to this point about salah and infaq. Okay? This was another point that the Shaykh in the course in Oman had emphasized to us. That if we were to summarize the whole of what this deen is, this religion is, it comes down to glorifying Allah and spending from what He has given. And that glorification or that tasbih is manifested above all in the salah. And that spending from what Allah has given is symbolized by, and the pinnacle of it is the zakah. But everything else that we give, which we consider to be optional. Okay, we've got zakah, which is obligatory upon people who have a certain amount of money and they've had it for a year, then they have to pay zakat upon it, right? But other things may be obligatory depending on what Allah has given us and what need exists around us. Because the Prophet ﷺ has said, that person is not a believer, not a believer. They asked him, who are you referring to, Ya Rasulullah? He said, he is not a believer who eats his fill while his neighbor goes hungry. So the meaning of iman has disappeared from somebody who is in a state of satisfaction and comfort, while next door, on the right and on the left, there are people who don't even have enough to eat. So our deen is giving us this sense of awareness of the rights of Allah upon us and the rights of people. The rights of people upon us. So that's why these two things are always together, salah and zakah. Salah and zakah. The rights of Allah and the rights of humanity. Because on the flip side, you've got a type of people who fulfill some of the outer forms and they do not translate that into action. In Surah Al-Ma'un, which describes فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. In a way, if you look at this surah in parts, okay, it begins by talking about someone who repulses the orphan. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. Have you seen a person who denies the deen? And the deen here may mean the religion, right? Or it may mean the judgment. Because one of the most important things, as we say, Maliki Yawmiddin, right? He's the master of the day of judgment. That's what deen means here. So here, يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ may mean a person who doesn't even believe in a hereafter. And so that affects his way of living in this life. Or that person disbelieves in the religion altogether. And disbelieving in judgment is, of course, disbelieving in religion. Right? Disbelieving in the hereafter. That is a person who repulses the orphan. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينَ, and doesn't participate with others in encouraging to give the due food to the needy people. And I'm being a bit careful with the translation because there's certain subtleties in طعام المسكين, right? فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. So woe to those praying people, musallis. Right? This is a good example of when you should learn, when you have to continue to the next ayah, right? Context. Yeah? Don't ever stand in your prayers and فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ Allahu Akbar. Okay? Don't ever stop here because that means woe upon people who do salah. Right? That's not the complete meaning. It is those who do some kind of salah, some kind of formal ritual, but they are neglectful of their prayers, they are turning away from their prayers, they are claiming to be musallin, but they are not performing them on time. This is not just the opposite of khushu'. Because some of the Salaf said, Alhamdulillah, Allah said, عن صلاة ساهون, and not في صلاة ساهون.
تذكر يوما كنت تعانق دمعة الفكر تناجي الله في صبر وترجو رحمة تسري.